tried to provide light so that you can see if you want to look at maps and that kind of thing. It's difficult to do in the dark. I have an iPhone flashlight, but that only goes so far. The city attorney asked me to explain that because this is an impromptu meeting that we could not advertise, although the commissioners for these districts would love to be here tonight, they are concerned about sunshine violations and won't be in attendance. Okay? We will hold another meeting tomorrow night or the night after, or we'll keep meeting with you as long as we think we can make some improvements to this project and try to work with you as much as possible. Okay? And whether or not this project goes through, last night the city attorney made some clarifications for the commission. And I want to start there because we can walk away from this project today. We can't walk away from the project long term. Okay? The issue is an ADA lawsuit, the settlement agreement the city entered into, and the designation of Virginia Street as part of that settlement. And to understand that, you have to understand that in the mid-90s, a pedestrian action committee started working on pedestrian access in the town. And they recommended a capital plan for the city. That plan was adopted, I think, in '96 and then updated in 2002. Okay. And about that same time, we got sued, and we ended up in a settlement agreement in 2004. That ADA settlement agreement is on the web page. Okay. The settlement agreement required a number of things. In some parts of it, it lists specific, I believe it lists specific intersections that have to be done in that, and those projects that they worked on.
Yeah, it listed the way it's stated, and you've read it. Julio would be familiar with it also. Julio Avial was our city manager at the time. That it said, correct these areas and everything else. That's basically what it says.
The premise was dealing with high traffic areas first. Okay, like Duval, we immediately went out and started making improvements to Duval and other high traffic. It talked about government facilities and having to, not only the access to government facilities, but the bathrooms and door handles and other public areas on public facilities that had to be brought into compliance. So we had two tracks that we had to respond to, if I could just for a minute. And so as part of that document, we were directed to come up with a list of projects. Well, staff already had a lot of work done on where to go. The capital lists that were that the Pedestrian Action Committee put together weren't built out because we didn't have the funds to build them out. So the first place we turned to was that list, that sweat equity that the committees have put in. That became a map that we have up here, and that the city attorney opined on last night, that whether or not, based on that direction from the court, federal court, so you don't get to say to the federal judge, no, we changed our mind, without petitioning the court and saying we want to consider it. Okay? So basically, the opinion that we got, there's two portions that hit us. First of all, this facility is considered under ADA rules to be a government facility, as long as the city still owns it, even though it's operated by under lease to a private nonprofit to run a facility. The other, that requires an 800 feet run from this facility to create an ADA path to a parking lot. Well, that's a little gray because we don't own a parking lot within 800 feet. The only parking lot is actually on the Catholic school property. And to argue that we're doing an 800-foot run to that property and calling that a parking lot is a bit of a stretch, okay? So not only does that's a gray area, and you're not hanging your hat on that, he says, but because it was on the map and because it was identified, we have ADA sidewalks coming at some point in the future to both sides. It's not just one side of this project, only that's one side of Virginia Street. The other side has to be brought into compliance as well. So eventually, from Jose Marti all the way to Windsor has to be done under that consent order, or it's conceivable that we say, no, go back and amend the agreement. And when we do that, we can expect the interveners, the people that litigated, to object. So it's not an automatic, it's not an easy process. I just want to point out to you that a lot of effort has been spent on talking about the impacts of the project and just making the project go away. And I would hope that we can spend some time talking about whether it's this project or a future project. I would hope we could spend some time talking about how to mitigate the impacts. We need to start a conversation about parking, because the substantial impact of the project and the concerns that have been voiced are just that, parking. There are other concerns as well, of course, but that's something that there are assumptions made, and we want to explain some numbers and parking counts and start the conversation there. And then there's questions, so when you want to stop and get some questions in, we can do that as well. I saw a hand already, so please. You had a question?
Yes, actually I have a couple. ADA compliance for this particular property. It's obvious that because this is a property that requires to be ADA compliant versus because it's a city property, it's leased for a non-profit, that's fine. But it's on this particular settlement, the accessible route shall be at least 36 inches wide. I measured the sidewalk, it is over 43 inches.
Well, I would like to respond to that.
Okay.
It says
My ADA expert.
minimum 36 inches wide.
Right.
Okay, and when you have that minimum 36 inches wide, there's other portions of the code that you're missing. You have to have turning areas, which are a minimum 5 foot in width. We deal with driveways that you have to provide an apron for. And if you have a driveway, how are you going to get an apron when you're...
So what does this one particular property have to affect from, well, it's not affecting Windsor, technically Windsor to Margaret has already been changed. They're no longer putting a sidewalk on this side of the property, they're going to repair the other one.
We're going to replace the other one.
Right, and for what
And
reason?
bring that into
I don't
ADA
understand,
compliance.
probably parking, okay, but this particular property is the questionable property, because this is the reason why we're here, is to make this ADA compliant, because it is part of the city,
Well,
correct? The city put a fence up.
Yes, plus.
Well, can
Yes,
I finish
yes,
my, can I
plus.
finish what I was,
Sure,
okay.
sure, Lorraine.
The city put that fence up on city property in error, okay? That fence, when I moved here, there was no fence around this property at all. Okay, the reason why there was is because we had this crazy chicken lady over here complaining, and that's the truth.
I lived
It's
next
the
door to
truth.
that crazy chicken
And this is
lady.
not, this historic building, I understand it's a historic building, but it was modified, and I understand why, because it was being used. Okay, so it has an elevator, it has this. it has the hose wash, but it's not technically a historic building anymore per se because of all the add-ons. Why cannot this not be made a parking lot for the museum?
That one I can't answer.
Okay,
That
but
one-
that's a good question
you know,
because
and I believe
if
David-
this is the issue right here as to why we're streets
Well, no, it's not, and
Yeah.
that's what I tried
Yeah.
to say. It's that plus.
Okay.
I mean, you've heard us discuss the
I want this
packed
thing open.
groups
It's in
and
here.
the
I want to see
walkable
it.
Key West and the pedestrian safe community. This before the lawsuit settlement.
Okay.
This was on the list, and again, that list was made prior to my employment with the
Okay.
city. But
Is there a copy of
there
that
are-
list? Because I couldn't get a prior.
Yeah, and we
prior.
actually last night we did
Prioritized
show it
list.
last night
And the
in the slide
meeting?
presentation. The
There was a
map
list
shown.
presented?
It was in the slide presentation.
Okay, is it
unfortunately,
available
I do
online
not-
though? I apologize, I wasn't there, I was sick.
Yeah,
You don't know if it's.
I
okay.
don't know. I didn't create it,
Okay.
but
I would like to see a
done.
prioritized list as to why Virginia Street is
Um,
top on the
so
priority.
Well, that was also
I
discussed.
think I addressed that last night,
I
and
know,
I'll
I-
explain it again. The way that when the ARA funds came down,
Right?
okay, we went to a technical advisory committee in Marathon for FDOT with the other communities with our list of priorities, okay, and they were in a numbered list based on a prioritization that we have the agency.
Yeah, the highest.
The prioritization for what needed to be done based on high traffic, based on government buildings, etc.
Okay.
An offshoot of that document. And we went to them and said, these are our important projects. On the paving side, for instance, at the same plate meeting, on the paving side, our number one project was Eaton Street. Okay? It wasn't even our road. Eaton Street's a county road.
Right.
But it was in very bad shape, evidenced by us going out and fixing it anyway. We could have fixed it with our money for free. But the county and other governments was concerned because of the dollar amount and wanted that money to be distributed in pieces. Okay, so it's like you're going around. So the point is, if I may please, the point is that we got a couple picks off the list, a couple of our projects got picked, and then it went up to FDOT, and there was some money left over. And they reached down on the list based on available funds. Okay, so they basically said, here, if you want the money, this project, this project, this project, these are what we'll fund. Okay, and it's that basic. We were offered funding. We offered a choice of whether to accept it or not. Whether you believe that we should have accepted our money or not, it was available federal funding that this community wouldn't have to pay out of our dollars. And it's being applied to a list that we're going to have to build at some point in the future. That's the mindset. We have to build these. And here's the list. We can accept the money or not. And
One more question.
David, it appears that the DOT arbitrarily chose Virginia Street to do it. Was there a feasibility study done?
no, sir.
Could you repeat
No,
the
sir.
question?
There was years of public meetings with the Pedestrian Action Committee, and that list of projects, including Virginia Street, is how Virginia Street ended up on the list of what we submitted to FDOT, to DOT. So, was there when you say feasibility, there were a number of communities number of participants of public outreach meetings held. Unfortunately, a lot of people in this audience didn't attend those meetings because they didn't see how it impacted them. And I understand that. But the reality is, for years, the Pedestrian Action Committee was active and out there doing arguably a community service, trying to make this community more pedestrian friendly. And there's good reason, because we rank number 4, is it, in the state as the worst area for 4th from the bottom.
We're the worst for
Bottom up.
we're fourth dangerous of small towns in the state of Florida.
Pedestrians.
You don't think that's drinking?
Pardon?
You don't think that might be related to drinking?
Yeah, but we can't close all the bars, can we?
Or having to walk down the middle of the road in the middle of the night.
I don't want to get off of it. So the pedestrian action committee made the decision.
Can't hear you.
No.
Yeah, could you
I don't want to
Based
mischaracterize
on
it.
what criteria?
I didn't attend those meetings, Julio. My responsibility at the time, as you know, was utilities, and I can't answer that question. But it was during a time when you were with the city, so you're somewhat familiar with the people that were active in that committee.
They also worked with city staff.
Right, there were engineering
And it was
staff,
adopted.
and
The
it was
plan was
adopted
adopted.
by the commission in '96 and then again in 2002, I believe. Yes, ma'am.
What will the width be on between Windsor and Morgan on that sidewalk you're replacing it?
Can you repeat the question?
On Windsor
Width of sidewalk Windsor to
Between
Margaret,
Windsor and Morgan.
and that would be on the south side.
the road
No, the
itself.
sidewalk that you're replacing.
We'll have 5 foot on one side, and we're not placing a sidewalk on the far side or the
North side.
On this side, the right side. The right
If we're
side.
facing this way, we're putting a sidewalk here, we're not putting one on we're putting a curb. So in front of
Face
Mr.
that way.
Lee's property,
The
around
Truman
the
side
corner,
will not
there-
have a sidewalk.
Right.
The
Right, that
Catherine
changed.
side will.
Okay, then that's part of my next question.
Why did it change?
And who is going to pay for the change order? I mean, does the Pino pay for that? Because I walked with Paul Pino, and I walked with Paul Pino from this corner all the way down. He had told me, informed me that that had changed. He had just found out that had changed.
I sent a request through Paul,
Yep.
with all the information regarding
Before he put his bid in? Before the bid was put in?
No, this was just recent.
Right.
It was before he bought the project.
Right, he knew about it. But
Right.
my question is,
And that came from these meetings. So I have sent all the information to provide us
when they change it, well, he's basically has to change the bid.
what it
Correct?
costs the city.
Right, does he have to change the bid?
No, this will be in addition to,
So this will be an additional cost to the city and the taxpayers.
yeah, but it's gonna be minimal.
So are the
because,
trees
well,
being removed, because he didn't put that in his plan.
And that,
And the fences being moved, he didn't put that in his plan. So
I'm
what,
glad you walked with Paul, now you know what
my point
listen
is,
to.
who's paying for this?
But the flip side of that, there's fences and walls and trees that he wouldn't remove. So yes, there'll be additions, and there will be credits back
Right.
for what he doesn't have to do.
So who,
So when you walk with a contractor, grain of salt is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because of
I
course
can't take it
everything's
with a
on
grain
the
of
plus
salt.
side until
I don't
we
think we
negotiate
should.
the change order. Okay, there will be some pluses, and it will cost us more money
in
to
the long
change-
run,
and to move it to that side
who does
to
it cost?
save the parking.
who does it cost? Does it cost the individual homeowner, or does it cost the city
You know what it
taxpayers?
saves? It saves 10 parking spaces. And I
Where?
think that is what is important
Show me 10 parking
to
spaces you're
the
saving.
residents.
You're taking out the mahogany
No,
tree.
let's say it differently. We're avoiding the displacement of 10
Yes.
parking spaces.
What?
And
Can you show me specifically where those 10 spots are?
certainly,
they're shown on the
we'd
plan.
like to do that offline so that we can
I'd
actually
love to see
point
that.
to it on the drawing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But absolutely. Julio, I'm not sure that I answered all of your questions. Please ask again.
Well, let me ask one question about it from me. If What other alternatives are there?
Alternatives to,
There are a number of streets in West that need to have sidewalks.
we cannot take this money and pick something else on the list and say we're going to do that. In fact, this has to be done. The original date was December 31st. We're working, but we have a deadline with FDOT. We actually have to have everything built out, substantial completion into January, build out and punch list and build out by end of February, and an approved invoice from FDOT. They have to do their audit before they cut a check to us. Everything has to be cleared by March.
Right, that's the way it's going.
When does the project have to be done by?
That depends. It's supposed to be done by,
2025?
Contract December 31st.
the contract says December 31st, but the delays that we have right now are going to push that into January.
And so, who pays the difference between it being on contract? Is there a penalty?
Well, that's an interesting issue, and I'd rather not get into it because it has nothing to do with the night. But the reality is, the contractor has burned a substantial amount of time on this and not providing us deliverables. And so, arguing that he's going to charge us for going into January for doing work that's required under the contract is a bit of a stretch. So the only thing we're going to pay extra for under this contract are things that we direct him to do out of scope, like flipping the sidewalk to the other side of the street. A small change.
Taking trees out that he wasn't aware of.
Pardon?
Taking trees out that he wasn't
Well,
aware of.
but I'm gonna save some walls that he had to take out, so I'll get it covered. Okay. So, and we have prices for transplanting and or removing trees, depending on which it is. So
Really no answer to that question is we don't know how much more it's going to cost the city.
So there is transplanting involved with it.
That is true.
Okay.
Yes, what we have is,
I've been a contractor in construction for 13 years down here in the Keys, and we'd always have to have the tree commission come out every time we put a fence line in. If we hit a root, you got to move the post. You ain't damaging the tree.
and we were on the tree commission
Trees,
agenda on
if they
Monday.
are removed, they are going to get replaced.
Apparently.
But you're going to lose yard. You're going to lose yardage, right?
I would definitely love to address that. We do have a total of 6 trees that are being removed. Most of them, or 3 of them, major trees. There's an almond tree in the 800 block that is actually going to be removed because of the flipping of the sidewalk to the other side. That also is in very poor condition. It was rated at a 40%, 30 or 40% by the tree commission. Then there is a mahogany in the 900 block that was in a bit better condition, but it received a 70% rate, and yes, that will be removed also. Then just past Wongson Alley, at this corner here, just a little bit, is the Royal Pension. That too will be removed. Then
My
there's
point is,
They be replaced.
they will be replaced, not necessarily in this project.
Well,
Okay. As far as
the tree commission.
what does it matter? Wait,
It was advertised for tomorrow.
What was that?
I don't understand how that happened. It was
I
advertised for
can't answer
tomorrow.
that. I did not deal with that. I do know that the tree
It was in the
commission
paper
meeting
for
was
the
on Monday.
17th. So
Anyway.
they voted to kill those trees
We
yesterday
have a Washington
without our
Tonian
knowledge.
and 2 openings that are also going to
Totally ignored.
be removed.
Totally ignored.
Then we have 23 other plants that will be
Don't leave.
relocated.
Oh, I'm out of here.
Don't leave. I wanna respond
Wait.
to you about the fence. First of all, before we took the chain link fence down that was here, and we put this.
Oh,
wooden
no, that's-
one.
the
About
fence
a
doesn't
year
bother
later, we
me
put
at
the wooden one.
all.
And our nonprofit paid for this fence. The city didn't pay for it. I just want to clear this up.
Oh, I know you did. I understand that, but you put that fence on city property. You put that fence on city right away.
No,
You put it on city right away. You put it in the wrong spot.
But, well,
I'm sorry.
I put where the fence was. And with a fence here.
Well, I understand that, and that's what we're all saying.
So I don't know who's telling you the information.
I'm not saying you did something wrong. I'm saying if you did what everybody else
And we
did.
paid for it, no city didn't pay for it. That's what you're spreading around.
Just like any other fence that is
Your
encroaching
fence
on
is
the right of
the
way.
least of my concerns.
We paid for the fence. I don't know who gave you that information. The city paid. The city didn't pay for it. We paid for it.
It doesn't
I mean,
matter.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, Paul.
It's not an issue. Okay,
I
please.
just want to clear who's
All right.
No, you're right.
I don't need a
Keep
confrontation.
going.
You're right.
You know somebody
You have to
lives
say what
in
you have
that.
to
You
say.
want me
Hey,
to keep
it's a
going?
public meeting. You're
Now
welcome
we
to
have
say
somebody
things.
that lives on the property. You have permission for that? Just keep going.
I want to know who lives on this street.
There we go.
Who lives on this street at
Now
this
I'm
meeting?
done.
I live on this street too. Who lives here on this street?
Yes,
I do.
right here.
Yeah.
I've been here for 13 years.
Hey, Rich, raise your hand. You
And
live
she
here
just
too.
stated it
Raise
to
your
me
hand.
that
Rich
as far as
actually
them
lives in
tearing
the
the fence
property.
down, it's not gonna,
I'm
the
done with it.
contractor's not responsible for putting the fence back. It's the homeowner responsible for putting the fence
Exactly.
back.
That's what they told us.
It's asinine. is
I
what you're telling me.
Ridiculous.
Really, truly
I
appreciate.
don't want to
if
battle.
we
We're
could
neighbors.
have a
I
civil
want everybody to be happy.
because
God.
when
What
everyone
about
is
that?
starting to get riled
We are riled.
and doing this, we're not
You're
getting
cutting
it.
trees down. You're
All
cutting
right,
down.
and what happens with the flooding?
You
Like I told
advertise
Mr.
a
Fernandez,
street
you're gonna put
permission
channel
meeting for
markers
tomorrow
up?
when you have it
We
ready.
know.
Channel markers,
you're
that's a
gonna
good
have-
idea.
Shit, we got a swimming pool over here at the corner, you know what I mean? Kids can come out here and play.
How you
Oh,
gonna
Karen.
navigate when that's flooded?
What, 13,
And I know you
14
said
years
it's better,
that I've been here?
but it's still over the sidewalk. And you
Up
can
by
ask
us,
anybody
too.
Yeah, they're
that lives
raised.
there,
Yeah,
it's
they're
over
raised.
the sidewalk.
Exactly.
Even though you dug 9 wells or
Yeah.
how many,
Yeah,
still
it got
doesn't
worse.
work.
It got a lot worse.
You know,
Things are fine.
Excuse me, can I ask another question?
Yes.
This goes along with what Lorraine was saying about this property here being one of the focal points for having this sidewalk because this is a government property. And that's what I'm understanding.
Speak
So
up a little bit.
my question is that I understand that a parking lot is going in here. If that's the case, doesn't that negate the need to have the ADA sidewalk for this property? And if so, couldn't the sidewalk go across the street and be less of an impact to what we're seeing right now with this plan?
Let me respond, please. First of all, what I tried to explain to you is that 800 feet, according to the city attorney, was a weak argument. However, the overriding argument is that we were directed by the judge to come up with a list. That list, both in the 2002 Pedestrian Action Committee list, which was the basis for this other map, and the map that we came up with at the direction of the court, had Virginia Street from Windsor all the way. That's both sides of Virginia, that's not one side, okay? So the fact that we have money for this side of Virginia Street doesn't relieve us from coming back and doing that side of Virginia
But
Street.
it's really hard
Doesn't
to
come.
believe that you're really going to put sidewalks on both sides. Couldn't you start on that side?
Yeah,
Has less of an impact, and then in
right-
3 or
right
5
there.
years come back to this side.
One thing that most of you, and I know I have mentioned this at the past 2 meetings, there are just as many encroachments on that side of the street as there are on this side of the street. For example, in the 1100 block, our right-of-way, because of the encroachments on both sides, is under 40 feet wide.
Karen,
and
have
it's
you looked at
actually
the parking
50.
impact, though?
Yeah.
There are encroachment problems everywhere in Key West. Well,
Absolutely.
If you did put the sidewalk on that side, would you still be losing as much parking as you're losing on this side? That's a real problem for me.
All right, now's a good time for us to, by way of answering that question, to talk in detail about parking, okay? Because we've gone back after last night and laid out what the actual parking is going to be. We've counted what is there now, both legal, illegal, and non-conforming. Last night we were using a word that the city attorney cautioned us about this morning. We were using the illegal to apply to 2 classes. One is appropriate, one is more appropriate to call non-conforming, and I'll explain the difference. When you park on the corner and right against the stop sign, that's parking illegally. There's a state statute that requires you to be 30 feet back from the corner. The issue is a safety issue, line of sight. It impacts your ability to get ADA accessible sidewalks, legal ADA accessible sidewalks, because the pedestrian has to step out from behind a parked car and is exposed to the traffic immediately without the driver of the vehicle being able to see the pedestrian. Okay? So the illegal parking spots are those parking spots on the corner. The non-conforming parking spots, if you watched the slideshow last night, are the head-end parking. Okay? We've gone back and counted the maximum number of cars that you can pack in here. And then we've backed off the number that are illegal by the true definition of illegal, parked on the corner. Okay? And we counted those. And we also have a count on what we have designed in, where we expect the results to be at the end of the project, and both in parking spots for cars and for motorcycles and scooters. Okay? And can you quote those numbers for me?
Yeah, we actually have 4 full-size vehicles, more standard parking spaces. This is all based on standard sizes of parking spaces. We can accommodate 36 vehicles and also 32 scooter and or motorcycle parking spaces.
If we could just please let us explain the numbers to you, then we'll answer the question.
But I would love to...
That's the design, just to emphasize. 36 and 32. Yeah. 36 cars and 32 scooters or motorcycles.
But I do want to emphasize that, and this is based on standard parking stalls. This area right here, right off the corner of Varela, is 52 feet that we have for parking. So of course I can get 2 standard stalls in there, and the rest would be scooter parking. But truly, when you take like my car,